As the stakes reach their peak in the 2024 WNBA Finals, New York Liberty star Breanna Stewart finds herself fighting battles on multiple fronts. On the court, she's focused on leading her team to its first-ever championship. However, she and her wife, Marta Zargay Casademont, are grappling with something far more sinister: targeted harassment, homophobic slurs, and death threats that have shattered what should be one of the most thrilling moments of Stewart's career.
But this week, it was reported that your wife, Marta, received a threatening and homophobic email. What happened there?
Yeah, it came after the game one loss. And, sometimes people are taking things a little bit too far and too out of context. And Marta had gotten homophobic death threats. A few other things have happened, but just making sure that we're doing as much as possible to continue to make sure that our team and the league is aware of the situation and continue to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, this is in light of a very public discussion right now this season surrounding the level of racism, of homophobia, of hate that players are receiving. What do you say to one another when this happens?
I think what we say to one another is, inside of this league, it's kind of like, why is this happening? Because we are the most inclusive league in all of professional sports, and I can say that with confidence. But there's no place for hate, homophobic racism. We want to continue to make sure that not only am I using this platform to make sure that we're keeping it consistent and really putting the pressure on, the league to keep us safe, but knowing this is happening not only in this league, but really around the world, and it's unacceptable.
As the threats escalated, Stewart's wife, Marta Zargay, sought help from the New York Police Department. The homophobic emails, which included death threats, left the couple with no choice but to inform law enforcement, further intensifying the off-court concerns as the finals progressed. Stewart, while focused on leading her team to victory, is now also juggling the safety and well-being of her family.
No, myself and my family, we're definitely doing okay. We're taking the proper precautions. I think that threats continued to build after game one, which we love that people are engaged in our sport, but not to the point where there's threats or harassment or homophobic comments being made. So we're just continuing to, let the league know they're handling it, but also I think for me, it's just continuing to use this platform to make sure that everyone knows that it's unacceptable to bring to our sport and really into this into the world.
The WNBA has responded to the situation, offering support to both Stewart and Zargay. This comes after a season in which the league has been increasingly vocal about social issues, releasing statements condemning racism and homophobia directed at players. However, Stewart's hope is that these statements lead to stronger action. We appreciate that the league is involved, but there needs to be more done to make sure players and their families feel safe.
I don't look at all my messages if I was to look at social media, but the fact that it came directly to Marta's email was kind of something that she couldn't not see.
Following the Liberty's Game 1 loss to the Minnesota Lynx on October 10th, an anonymous and deeply disturbing email landed in Zargay's inbox, the email dripping with hatred and cruelty read in part, "I hope someone shoots your wife dead." It didn't stop there. The message went on to spew homophobic slurs saying, "F***, I hope you both die." This wasn't just another faceless insult in the world of social media trolling. This was a direct and personal threat, an intrusion into their lives, into their home. Stewart, visibly shaken but unwavering, addressed the threats publicly on NBA Today, calling them unacceptable and revealing just how close this attack hit. It wasn't just some generic tweet or message buried in a sea of online comments. It was a death threat sent straight to her wife's personal email. This act of violence, masked by anonymity, has brought the danger right to their doorstep. In a press conference, Stewart elaborated on how the incident had escalated. She described how after Game 1, the level of hostility increased. This wasn't just a one-off threat. More and more hateful messages followed, creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. Stewart made it clear that, while she and her family are taking all necessary precautions to ensure their safety, the emotional toll is undeniable. "We love that people are engaged in our sport," she explained, but not to the point where threats, harassment, or homophobic comments are being made. While this situation is undoubtedly distressing, it's far from unique. The WNBA, enjoying its most successful season yet with surging viewership and record-breaking attendance, has simultaneously seen an alarming rise in the abuse directed at its players. Racist, sexist, and homophobic attacks have intensified, especially on social media platforms, where the lines between fan engagement and toxicity have become increasingly blurred. On the podcast A Touch More, hosted by Seattle Storm legend Sue Bird and her partner Megan Rapinoe, Bird reflected on this troubling trend. She pointed out that while players like Caitlin Clark have brought unprecedented attention to the league, they've also inadvertently shone a spotlight on an issue that's been festering for years. Bird made it clear that Clark, as a rising star, wasn't responsible for the vitriol, but rather that the surge in popularity had amplified a long-standing problem. Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year, Bird remarked. This is not a new thing. Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. She went on to explain how this attention had only made the abuse more visible to the public, while WNBA players have been dealing with it all along. We've been trying to tell you. The WNBA, recognizing the severity of the situation, released a statement on September 25th, condemning all forms of racist, derogatory, and threatening comments directed at players, teams, or anyone affiliated with the league. The league reiterated that it is actively monitoring such threats and is prepared to contact the relevant authorities when necessary. Yet, for Breanna Stewart, these statements, while a step in the right direction, are not enough. Stewart has been vocal about the need for more than just words. "We appreciate that the league is involved," she said during a press conference, "but there needs to be more done to make sure players and their families feel safe." For Stewart, it's not just about her own safety, it's about the safety of all WNBA players and their families, many of whom face similar threats regularly. This issue isn't new, but the sheer visibility of these threats, especially when they target someone's family, is what makes this moment different. Stewart explained how, in the past, she could brush off random messages on social media, but the fact that this threat came directly to her wife's inbox, something so personal and unavoidable, struck a different chord. The level of closeness was a little bit different, she admitted. Now, the concern isn't just for herself, but for her wife, for their children, and for their collective well-being. As the threats escalated, Marta Jarge reached out to the New York Police Department for assistance. The homophobic death threats had crossed a line, leaving the couple no choice but to involve law enforcement. Even as Stewart continues to chase a championship on the court, she now faces the added weight of ensuring her family's safety off it. It's a delicate balance, pursuing a third WNBA title while also juggling the intense fear and concern for her loved ones. But through it all, Stewart remains steadfast. She's no stranger to adversity, and while these threats are horrifying, they won't define her or her family's future. With the unwavering support of her teammates, her fans, and the broader WNBA community, Stewart is determined to rise above this hatred. "We're strong, and we'll keep pushing forward," she said confidently. But this is not something that should be happening in sports, or anywhere else. As the Liberty continue their quest for the championship, one thing is certain: Breanna Stewart's leadership extends far beyond her dominance on the court. She's proven time and time again that her strength, resilience, and courage in the face of injustice are as much a part of her legacy as her accolades in basketball. This moment is bigger than a game. Stewart and her teammates are standing up, not only for themselves but for all athletes who deserve to play and live without fear. They're fighting for a future where players' legacies are defined by their brilliance on the court, not by the hatred they face off it. Critics on social media have questioned whether this incident is being used as a means to rally public support for the Liberty and create a distraction. "This happens to all athletes," one online commenter argued. "So why should Breanna get special treatment just because she's a WNBA player?" And this sentiment reflects a broader frustration that Stewart's case is being elevated, while many others face similar harassment without the same level of media coverage or league intervention. Finally, There are those who believe that the WNBA's response to the situation highlights a double standard in how threats against athletes are handled. Some argue that the league is quick to act when it comes to high-profile players like Stewart, but slower to respond when lesser-known athletes face similar threats or issues. They question whether the league is truly committed to protecting all of its players equally, or if this situation is receiving special attention because of Stewart's celebrity status. For these critics, it's not about minimizing the seriousness of the threats, but rather about questioning the broader context. Should all athletes expect to face abuse as part of their careers? And if so, how should the league or society at large respond in a way that ensures fairness across the board?